Chapter 1. Stockholm, 1789. Sources: E.L., Police Officer X, Mr. F, Baron G, Mrs. S, Archivist D.B., Ritterhuset. Stockholm is called the Venice of the North, and with good reason. Travellers claim that it is just as complex, just as grand, and just as mysterious as its sister to the south, reflected in icy Lake Mälaren and the intricate waterways of the Baltic Sea are grand palaces, straw yellow townhouses, graceful bridges, and lively skiffs carrying the population among the 14 islands that make up the city. But rather than expanding outward into a sunny, cultivated Italy, the deep forests that surround this glittering archipelago create a viridian boundary full of wolves and other wild things that mark the entry to an ancient country and the brutal peasant life that lies just beyond the town. But standing at the brink of the century's final decade, in the last years of His Majesty King Gustav III's enlightened reign, I rarely thought of the countryside or its scattered, scavenging population. The town had too much to offer, and life seemed filled with opportunity. It is true that at first glance it did not appear to be the best of times. Farm animals resided in many of the houses, sod roofs moulded in disrepair, and one could not miss the pox, scars, phlegmy coughs, or other myriad signs of illness that tormented the populace. The funeral bells sounded at all hours, for death was more at home in Stockholm than in any other city of Europe. The stench of raw sewage, spoiled food, and unwashed bodies tainted the air. But alongside this grim tableau, one could glimpse a light blue watered silk jacket embroidered with golden birds, hear the rustle of a taffeta gown and fragments of French poetry, and inhale the scent of rose pomade and eau de cologne drifting by on the same breeze that carried a melody by Bach, Bellman, or Krauss, the true hallmarks of the Gustavian age. I wanted that golden era to last forever. Its finale would be unforgettable, but most everyone missed the beginning of the end. This was not so surprising. People expected violence served up with the Revolution, America, Holland, and France being freshly carved examples. But that February night, when our own quiet revolution began, the town was calm, the streets nearly deserted, and I was playing cards at Mrs. Sparrow's. I loved card play, as did everyone in the town. Card games were present at any gathering, and if you did not join in, you were not considered rude, but dead. People disported themselves with whatever game was on the table, but Boston whist was the national game. Gambling was a profession that, much like prostitution, only lacked a guild and a coat of arms, but was acknowledged as a pillar of the city's social architecture. It built a kind of social corridor as well. People one might never associate with otherwise could be sitting across from you at cards, especially if you were the more devoted sort of player admitted to the gaming rooms of Mrs. Sofia Sparrow. Access to this establishment was much sought after, for though the company was mixed, high-born and low, ladies and gentlemen, a personal recommendation was required for entry, after which the French-born Mrs. Sparrow vetted her new guests on a system no one could quite decipher. Skill level, charm, politics, her own occult sensitivities. If you failed to meet her standards, you were not allowed back. My invitation came from the police spy for the street, with whom I had forged a useful exchange of information and goods in my work for the Office of Customs and Excise. My intention was to become a trusted regular at Sparrow's and make my fortune in every way. Much like our King Gustav had taken a frozen provincial outpost and transformed it into a beacon of culture and refinement, I intended to climb from errand boy to respected red-cloaked secrétaire. Mrs. Sparrow's rooms were on the second floor of an old step-gabled house at 35 Greyfriars Alley, painted the trademark yellow of the town. We entered from the street through an arched stone portal with a watchful face carved into the keystone. Customers claimed that the eyes moved, but nothing moved when I was there except a quantity of money in and out of my pocket. That first night, I admit, my stomach churned in anticipation, but once we climbed the winding stone